ke shapo dumelang guys. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you are well. I hope you are good. If you are new, welcome. Ke nna Sharon Silwana, and I'm so happy that you're here today. All right, let's jump into the topic of today. Let's discuss the rulings and the happenings in the courts of late. Enhle Mbali came on the socials and told us about her win in the Enhle Mbali and Black Coffee court case around their marriage, around divorce, around settlement, etc. It's been an interesting couple of days, having heard from different perspectives. The men on Twitter were throwing their toys at the cart at this ruling, and I really loved seeing how the women came together and celebrated this win with Enhle, because I really feel like it is a win for a lot of women, right? Now let's get into it, okay? First and foremost, as you would know, Mbali and Black Coffee dated, they got married, and in 2019, they filed for divorce. I believe Mbali filed for divorce because of the infidelity in her marriage and the number of children, and just Black Coffee continuously impregnating other women. She shared this largely in her interview with Releborile on 702, and she was just getting into the reasons that led to their divorce and her actually deciding to walk away, right? She has been in the courts for that long. And I can imagine just what it took for her to be where she is right now. So I just want to open a few of my notes. We're going to talk about the Enhle Mbali judgment, and then we'll also talk about marital contracts, right? So let's start with marital contracts. So the common marital contract that people opt to go for, sometimes by choice or sometimes not by choice, is getting married in community of property. I think it's also the cheapest option. You go to Home Affairs, sign, and I think you pay about 75 Rand or 100 Rand, but it's like a very readily available option, okay? And then you have the other two options that are usually done through the court, or through your lawyer, that is, and that is an antenuptial contract with accrual and an antenuptial contract without accrual. Okay, now because we're talking about Mbali in this instance, her and Black Coffee had a traditional wedding. I believe it was in 2011. I stand to be corrected. And I think they then had a white wedding following up to that traditional wedding. Beautiful white wedding in Sun City, very, very nice and lavish. And then they got divorced about in 2019. Not too sure about the timelines, but we're here now. They had lobola negotiations. If I'm correct, Black Coffee paid something around 70 or 75,000 Rand for, or gifted the family with 70 or 75,000 Rands in lobola, and then happily ever after until a certain point in time, right? Okay, cool. The happening of the lobola negotiations without an antenuptial contract had their marriage automatically become a customary marriage, okay? So the at the date in which they had the lobola negotiations, they did not sign any contract. And then by default of having negotiations, you are automatically married customarily in community of property. Okay, that's then the first part of what happened between the two parties. In 2017, after their white wedding, Black Coffee then should suggest they should change their marriage regime, and they changed their marriage regime to an antenuptial contract, right? So their initial marriage was under customary law, and then the latter was under civil law. What Mbali was going back and forth with at the courts was to prove that she was married to Black Coffee. customarily, right? And she was able to provide all of the necessary information. She was able to provide pictures of their weddings. She was able to provide invitations, letters, etc. And then that's why then the court ruled in her favor to make the civil marriage invalid, right? The contract that they got into later on was overridden by what happened initially, where they got married customarily. Okay, hence it is always advised that if you want to get married out of community of property with accrual or without accrual, you need to do that before your uncles go and kokota at her gates, or before the uncles come to your house, right? I was listening to a sister-in-law live yesterday, and the lawyer was like, this, the section in the courts says there can either be a negotiation or a lunch or a celebration. So the celebration or lunch is over and above. But initially, by virtue of the two families coming together and there having been a meeting and a letter and a negotiation, by virtue of that, you are already automatically married customarily, okay, in community of property. Crazy. They were even saying that even without a letter, by virtue of there being a negotiation, even if 100 rand was gifted to the family as a bride price, that, my darling, automatically puts you under customary marriage in community of property. Crazy. Mbali came and told us that the husband, or now ex-husband, would come and have a problem with her acting gigs where she was now supposed to act as a wife, or where she was supposed to kiss another guy. So she lost on a lot of roles because her then husband was not comfortable with her acting in certain roles, right? That would mean saying no to a lot of roles or not auditioning for certain roles, because the spec was, is my husband going to be okay with this role or not? She then decided, you know what, actually, since there's always a back and forth with me and trying to get a job in the acting world, let me actually leave the acting thing and focus on being a housewife. Let me take care of the children, etc., etc. And that's exactly what Mbali did. She didn't work anymore, and she was then a housewife, a lovely, rich, cute housewife, going to and from different countries, traveling with her husband, spending summer in everywhere where there was summer. When there was winter here, I remember how she'd go to like Europe because it is summer there. So she was literally playing as a very supportive role in Black Coffee's life and living her best life, homeschooling her children, schooling them, taking care of them. Basically running a home is what she did. And that was her compromise in the marriage, okay? Get it? Once that was all done, and they are now divorcing, that's when she came and told us that these are the things I had to sacrifice so that there can be love and happiness and joy in my marriage. So you have your wife let go of her career. You have your wife focus fully on taking care of the home and of your children, and then you are going to take her up and down in the courts because you do not want to maintain. No. I love this judgment so much because it speaks to the protection of women who constantly have to sacrifice for the men who go out to the field and work while I take care of the home. Let the court judge accordingly, which I love this ruling so much because crisp. I love it so much because I honestly feel like it is fair game. It is a genuinely fair game because I supported your career. I let go of work. I let go of money. I ran this household, okay? I made sure that I ran this home. I ran this home so much, and now I must go in the courts fighting for what is basically due to me at this point. So what Mbali was going to the court for was for spousal maintenance. So she had, I think, 500,000 was her initial request to the court to say that this is the lifestyle that this man accustomed me to, the life of wealth, travel, designer, opulence, nje. So she was saying, this is the life that I'm accustomed to. This is how much my skincare costs. Okay, and this is the life I lived when I was married to this man. Therefore, I deem it as fair for him to continue to pay me this much, right? The courts then did due diligence, I guess, then looked into her request for the 500,000, and then they ruled that, you know what, you deserve spousal maintenance. We are just not going to give you half a bar, but we are going to give you, I think it came down to 67,000 per month. Over and above the 50K that she's getting in child support. So child support will still be 25,000 rands per child. So making it 50,000 for her 2 boys, and as well as the spousal maintenance of 67,000 rands a month. You know what I love about the spousal maintenance? The court said you will pay that spousal maintenance until she dies or until she remarries. And because there are inflation and charges and like increase in this, that, and the other, it shall be amended annually. I said, clock it. I love the judge. I love the judge, and I love the ruling so much. So much. What a win for women who've always been sacrificing, building homes, only to be left out hungry when the marriage ends. After having sacrificed so many years to raising a home with you and raising children with you and building a home with you, and you literally just want to throw her out like that. Another interesting thing when it comes to law is that there is no one size fits all. Like, no case is the same as the other. So as much as this is such a good win for women who've sacrificed and compromised a lot on their end, every case in the courts is looked at with its own merits. It's looked at with its own merits, and you bring forth your case, and a judgment is being ruled according to your case and the evidence that you're able to bring forward. Remember, guys, if you find yourself having had a lunch, if you find yourself having had a traditional wedding, or there were negotiations, whether there was celebration, whether people ate beetroot or not, if now, because you know better or you want to do better, or you have the knowledge now, you are then able to still change your marriage regime. You can do this through the courts, through a lawyer. They can help you. You can contact a lawyer. You can do a Section 21, and then you're able to get into an agreement where you change your marriage contract from in community of property to the antenuptial contract with accrual or without accrual. You do not need to divorce for you to be able to do that. The Section 21 is there to help you facilitate that without you having to divorce. You just need, I think, what do they call it? You just need to make an application to the deeds office. I could be wrong, I'm not a lawyer, but you just need to contact a lawyer, and you're able to change your marriage regime from in community of property to drafting a contract through a lawyer that will then change your marriage regime. But there's a lot of confusion that I've been seeing people do, that you need to be divorced. You do not need to go through any divorce. You just need to contact a lawyer, and then they can help you with the relevant processes. You can get it done in 4 months, 6 months, or it can drag longer, just depending on the complexities in your case specifically. Okay. And you know what? I do get why back in the day there was a lot of in community of property. And I'm completely for that, because back in the day, our grandfathers or our fathers would leave home and go work egoli. For example, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, left home, left my grandmother at home, and then went to Mahueng, to go to go work. So now what is my grandmother doing back home? My grandmother is taking care of all of their children and building a home. So I definitely get why after my grandfather's death, I get why then the court should grant my grandmother the estate of my grandfather, because my grandmother stayed home building a home, taking care of children, raising children on her own, while my grandfather was working to put bread on the table. So for me, it is fair game. You went to work and I took care of the home. It reminds me exactly like the Mbali situation. You are working, I am supporting you in your work, I am traveling with you, going all around the world with you, but sometimes I'm not going around the world with you. I am staying home, building a home, raising our children for the most part while you are away. I absolutely think this is such a win, not only for Mbali, but for a lot of women as well, who find themselves in the same instances, and they are now left without after many years of raising kids, building homes, and many years of compromise and understanding that your husband is plowing to bring food to the table, where you are compromising getting a job, where you are compromising making money to raise a family. An agreement that we both consented to. And now, because things have went south, is this what you want to do? No. I find law to be so interesting. I love how every case in the court stands on its own. We can reference a case law from whenever, but we are going to deal with you one-on-one, individually. Bring it forward and let's assess the happenings of this union and how we are going to dissolve it. So, well done, Mbali. I can imagine you did say on your caption that it was tough to get to where you are, but you know what? I love this ruling. Down. So remember, guys, always contact a lawyer, always make good and wise decisions. I think what these cases do is that they teach us, they teach us a lot about what happens in law and where we could have made better decisions. And it's never too late to make sure that you've made the right decision. Guys, let's be educated. Let's contact and consult with lawyers to make sure that the marriages we are in, we understand the benefits and we understand the repercussions as well for the different contracts that we get to choose. There's no contract that supersedes the other, but they are just wiser contracts to get married into, depending on what works for the both of you at the end of the day. Okay, but make that decision wisely with all the necessary information. All right. And remember, guys, if the uncles go, there's a letter that you guys are married, and the uncles go back after you have a family meeting and they're like, these ones can't go carry on together, they must divorce. Even if the uncles have a letter there that you guys, we are ending this thing, that letter is not going to hold. You will still need to go to the courts and make sure that you dissolve your customary marriage. Okay, so the letter that your uncles are holding on to, that you, X and Y, are separated, we had a family meeting, you guys cannot build together, that is not going to help you in the court of law. You need to go get that man or that woman, head out to the court and make sure that you dissolve that marriage through the courts. Okay. And remember, you don't need to have a celebration. So you don't need to have had a big traditional wedding. You don't need to have had a lobola lunch, as we call it this way, which for me, I really think is a traditional wedding. And yeah, you don't need to have had an actual letter, but the meeting of the two families and the negotiating from the two families will land you in a customary marriage in community of property. Also, quick note before I go, while we're talking about marriage contracts, guys, it's also important to draft up a will. A will is equally as important as a marriage contract. Remember that a will does take precedence over any form of marriage contract. So don't fully rely on marriage contracts, but take it a step further and create a will, because that does take precedence when we have to look into an estate, whether it's a joint estate or one person's estate in terms of dissolving their assets, etc. Okay. With the different marriages in community of property, this is where you get into a joint estate and you share in both the assets as well as the debt. I think the debt part is what people don't talk a lot about, and some people have found themselves wanting because the other party in the joint estate has gotten themselves into a lot of debt. And remember, guys, creditors are there to give credit and go. They don't do as much due diligence, especially when it comes to married people in community of property. They will give you the money that you want, and then the one party will get you into a lot of debt. So when you look at in community of property, it is not what people always look to say, I'm going to share in the assets and the wealth, etc. But there's also a large part of it which is debt, especially when especially when someone in the joint estate is dishonest and is getting into debt without the knowledge of the other party. Okay. The next contract is out of community of property with accrual. So everything that we both accrue together in the marriage from the date of our marriage or from the date where we sign the contract is what will hold. So if I come in with 4 houses in Pretoria East, and my husband comes with 4 houses in Johannesburg North, at the date of our wedding, all our houses remain our own property, and then everything we acquire together in our marriage will be a joint estate. Okay? And then the last one is out of community of property. What's yours continues to be yours. What is mine continues to be mine. However, we are able to draft a will to say that should I die, for instance, then these are the beneficiaries of my estate. I can write my husband, I can write my children, I can write a charity organization. That is completely up to me in terms of who's going to be the beneficiary of that estate. And that is not always a bad marriage contract to get into. It is good, especially for people who do business, especially for people who do business, or people who just do not want to get married in community of property or ANC with the accrual option. It is also a good option to choose. Remember, you can always get a will, or you should get a will, to make sure that when your estate is being dissolved, it is being dissolved, and the relevant people that you want to benefit from your estate will benefit accordingly. Okay, so should one person in the marriage get into debt, that is their debt. Should the other person in the marriage get very wealthy, that is their wealth. However, they can, in their estate, like I said, select the beneficiaries as well as to what percentage. So do make your research and then choose the best marriage regime for yourself and your partner. I just had an afterthought. So always remember, when it comes to ANC with accrual, oftentimes it works for people who already have assets or equity prior to getting into the marriage, right? So if you and your partner are going to start building together and acquiring assets together, then it sort of defaults you back to community of property, because you're then about to build your lives together, So always consult a lawyer, like I say, guys, and always make the best decision for you. But if you are marrying a rich person, or a person in extreme debt, which maybe you shouldn't be, um it then works out, you know. So say for example I decide, like say a Beyonce. So a Beyonce has worked so much and has gotten so much net worth, right? So she stands to protect her net worth at the date of her marriage. So everything else prior to that will continue to be hers. And then if she wants, and she can get into an accrual, and anything that she builds with you as the husband will then be a joint estate when it gets to the time of dissolving that estate. Do you know what I mean? So also, that's why it's always good to not take what works for this couple, because it might not be the same scenarios around your kind of marriage, okay, and the marriage contract that you want. So always make a wise decision. I also have been seeing, when it comes to ANC with accrual, that a lot of young people are loving it. You know, it does take you out of incommunity of property. It gets you to a point of having a contract. But what a lot of young people don't realize is that if you and your spouse are starting to build together, so none of you have debt and none of you have assets, and you guys get married via ANC with accrual, then you are going to start getting assets together. You're going to start buying your houses together, building equity together. That is then by default going to put you in community of property. Do you get what I'm saying? So yeah, guys, that's all. I just really wanted to discuss this win and update in the courts. I really found this to be interesting. Hence, I also wanted to talk about it. So let me know what your views are. What do you think about the judgment? Yeah, which part of the spectrum are you? Let me know in the comment section, and then let's talk about it. Let's educate each other, and let's make sure that we make really good and wise decisions, okay? Remember, it's never too late to change the marriage regime to suit what you and your partner want, okay? It's not always about divorce. I think divorce is like a small part in it, but contact a lawyer. Until my next video, it's all love from this side, and I'll see you the next time I drop a video or a vlog. Bye.